Okay guys, welcome to lesson 10.1 in Algebra 2. Okay, we are going to be doing rational exponents. Little warm up. Do you guys remember how to do stuff like this? What is a squared times a to the third? Do you add them or do you multiply them? You add them. Okay, good. What about this one? Ooh, this is a lot harder. Okay, xy cubed times x squared y. What do you do with this thing? Okay, you're going to do the x's separately and get x to the third. And then you're going to do the y's and get y to the fourth. Okay, good. Now try this one. What do you do on this guy? Now this is a power to a power. So we're going to get a to the third, b to the sixth. Make sure you do these with me. Do these with me. Okay, now what about the division? M to the sixth over m squared. Remember how to do that? Good. M to the fourth. You subtract them. Okay, now what happens if you got this guy? There's two answers. You could say it's 1 over n squared or n to the negative 2 power. Okay, now last one, it's a 3 by the way, x cubed over y fourth all to the second power. What is that going to do? X to the 6th over y to the 8th. Okay, so think about those things. Remember, those are the basics. We're going to be building on this because we're going to be dealing with exponents. And you know that we have done exponents like this. We've done regular numbers. We'll call them whole numbers. We've done negative numbers. So we can do an exponent as an integer, including a 0. That's 25. That's 1 over 25, and that's 1. What we're going to do today is we're going to start to use rational exponents, not just integer exponents. Rational exponents means we're going to have fractions and decimals as an exponent. Here's some examples. Let's just look at what this thing means. Yeah. Okay. So suppose you've got 16 to the 1/2 power. Weird. Okay. Let's use our exponent rules and let's figure out what this means. Now, if I do 16 to the 1/2 squared, then that's really the same thing as 16 to the 1/2 times 2, which is really 16 to 1, which is really 16. Oh, so what we're going to say is that the square root of 16, that's also 16. So look at this. Look at this. That means these are the same. The 16 to the 1/2 and the square root of 16 are the same. So let's write this down. Something to the 1/2 power is equal to the square root of that something. Let's try another one kind of like that. Suppose you've got 8 to the 1/3 power. Now let's get it to turn into a 1 as the exponent. So we're going to raise it all to the third power. What's 1/3 times 3? Because remember, that's the rules of our exponents. And then we got 8 to the 1, which is really 8. Now, what's the radical equivalent of this exponent? You can do it like this. Because these are going to be the same. Why? Because if you cube this and you cube this, you get 8. So these are the same. So we're going to say that something to the 1/3 power is like the cube root of it. See what's happening here? If we have any fraction, then the number on the bottom of the fraction, like the 3 or the 2, it tells us what kind of radical to use. See that? Okay, so let's take this up a notch and let's do one like this. What if you've got 16 to the 3/4 power. Okay, what would something like that mean? Something to the 3/4 power. Okay, well, it means the 4th root of 16 and the answer of that cubed. So let's do it. What is the 4th root of 16? The 4th root of something is whatever you have to use as a factor 4 times to get 16. So that's going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, so the 4th root of 16 is 2, and then we raise it to the 3rd power, and we get 8. So 16 to the 3/4 power is 8. Okay, now there's actually another way we can even do this. You see how I did the 4th root first? I can also do it like this. This is where you're gonna love this. So you can do 16 to the 3rd first. This just means 16 to the 3rd. So you can do that part first and then cube root, or 4th root it. So 16 times 16 times 16, go ahead and do that in your head and you'll get 4,096. Just kidding. Okay, and then 4th root that. You're going to use a calculator to help you figure that one out, and the answer will be 8 again. So you can do it either way. Doing the root part of it first is almost always easier. Recommended. Okay, let's do a couple more examples, see if you can get this. They're going to say stuff like simplify. When you simplify, they want you to work the numbers through until it's as simple as possible. So 25 to the negative 3/2 power. Simplify 25 to the negative 3/2. Okay, we're going to do this part first. The square root of 25, a 2 is a square root. Then we're going to do it to the negative 3rd power. Okay, so what's the square root of 25? We're going to get 5 to the negative 3rd power, which is the same as 1 over 5 to the 3rd, which is 5 times 5 is 25 times 5 is 125. There's our answer. Okay, let's do another one. Now, what if it's a decimal, 9 to the 2.5 power? It's the same as this, just change the decimal to a fraction. So 9 to the 2.5 power is the same as 9 to the 5/2 power. Now, let's do the root part first. So what's the square root of 9? The square root of 9 to the 5th power. The square root of 9 is 3. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 243. There's our answer. Okay. Now, another situation. They're going to give you something like this. Whoa, okay, the 3rd root of a to the 5th, b to the 3rd, all over c squared. Now, can you simplify this? Not simplify. Sorry, wrong. They're going to say write in exponential form. Exponential form. That means change this to have only exponents, no radicals. Okay, here's how we'll do it. We're going to take the inside of the radical, rewrite it, and we're just going to change the root to an exponent fraction. So we have that to the 3rd. Then we're just going to work it through into each piece. So we have a 5 times 1/3, 5/3. B, 3 times 1/3 is 1. And C to the 2nd power, 2 times 1/3 is 2/3. Now you don't have to write the 1. Let's get rid of all that. And then we don't want any division, so here's how we'll write our final answer. Negative exponents are okay here. Done. Okay. Another one. Now sometimes they're going to ask you to simplify like they did up here. Simplify. Okay, so let's go ahead and simplify. Another one. 1 over the cube root of 4 to the negative 3/2 power. Oh wow, this is getting thick quick. Okay, let's start the same way we started the previous example. Change the radicals into a fraction. So let's change our radical into a fraction, a fractional exponent. So I'm going to have 1 over 4 to the 1/3 power, like that. Then I'm going to make it 4 to the negative 1/3 power. Remember, that's how it works. Then all that's to the negative 3/2. And this is about to be, your mind is about to be blown. 1/3 times 3/2, that's 3, 6. Notice the negative times a negative. That rule still applies here to 3, 6, which is 4 to the 1/2, which is the same thing as the square root of 4. The answer's 2. What a weird way to write 2. There it is. Okay, here's another problem. I'm running out of paper. Let's get it. Okay, write this in the exponential form and in simplest radical form. We're going to give the answer 2 ways. Here we go. Square root of 8 times the cube root of 4. Okay, so we need it in exponential form, and we need it in simplest, otherwise this is in radical form. We want it in the simplest radical form. Okay, so here's how we're going to do that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to break this up into its prime factors, a product of prime factors. So 2 to the 3rd. And we're going to do the same thing here. 2 to the 2nd. Okay, so now notice what we did. We just changed the 8 to 2 to the 3rd power and 4 to the 2nd power. Now, we're going to make this into a fractional exponent. And what is the square root? It's the 1/2 power. So this is going to change into 2 to the 3/2 power. And this one will change into the 2, the squared, and then the 3rd. So 2 to the 3/2 times 2 to the 2/3. And then when you put that together, it's going to be 2 to the 3/2 plus 2/3. And notice, to add the fractions, we have to have a common denominator. So let's do that. Times 3 times 3 times 2 times 2. So we're having 2 to the 13/6 power. And that's answer number 1. But now how do we write that in a radical form? Because so we got this one down, but now we need it in the simplest radical form. Okay, let's convert this to a mixed fraction. 2 to the 2 1/6 power. Now this is kind of complicated, but if you think it through with me, I'll try to go slow, it might make some sense. In fact, let's get a fresh piece for that. So I'm taking 2 13/6. Then we converted that into a mixed fraction. Okay, now 2 1/6 is really the same as 2 plus 1/6. Think about that. Okay, now the reason we're doing that is because we are now going to use our multiplying powers with common base rules. So what I mean is, if I go 2 to the 2nd times 2 to the 6th, then I'll get that. And so we're going to go backwards and create the original multiplication of powers. So 2 squared times 2 to the 6th, or 2 to the 1/6 power is this. Okay, so 2 squared is 4, and 2 to the 1/6 is really the 6th root of 2. So that's the answer number 2. That's the simplest radical form. Okay, we're almost there. You guys have been hanging on for 15 minutes of this. Okay, good. Now, the last thing is they're going to say, so sometimes they'll say simplify, and that means do what we did. Sometimes they'll say put it in exponential form, and other times they'll say solve. We're about to do a couple where we got to solve. So if you have x minus 1 raised to the 3/2 power equals 8, and they say, tell me what x is. We're going to use our exponent rules and solve this. So if I want x minus 1 isolated, then I'm going to raise this to the 2/3 power. And if I do it on this side, I do it on this side. That becomes 1. And so I have x minus 1 equals 8 to the 2/3 power. Let's break this up. What's the cube root of 8? 2. And then 2 squared? 4. So now we're back to the first week of pre-algebra here. X minus 1 equals 4, and we've got x equals 5. So you can solve these things. Okay, let's do one more like that, and then we'll be done. Okay, so 5x to the negative 1/3 power equals 20. Now remember, don't get caught up by this mistake. The negative 1/3 applies only to the x, not the 5. This 5 is floating off to the side. It is not part of this power situation. So let's divide both sides by 5. So now I have x to the negative 1/3 equals 4. Okay, now let's raise this to the negative 3 power to make that be a 1. And we'll raise this to the negative 3 power because we got to do it to both sides. So x is equal to 1 over 4 to the 3rd. And 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. So the answer is 1/64. Done. Okay, you guys, go ahead and practice and do the homework exercises and let me know if you have any questions.